Well, the latest news showing the declining EQAO scores and our Premier Ford's new curriculum plan, we have the math guru, Vanessa Vakharia, here to tell us what we can do to help our kids with the most challenging subject. It probably is math. It's a difficult one, and yet you love it, right?
I love it.
Why do you love it?
I didn't always love it, though.
No, I know. You struggled, right?
I did. I failed math twice, so I've definitely been there. I love math. For me, it's something that, because it's so challenging, once you kind of like overcome that, and once you prove that you can do it despite all the kind of obstacles in your way, it's really empowering. That's why I love teaching it.
What do you think about these declining scores, the EQAO?
I think it's really important to look at the full picture with the scores. So the scores are declining, and that obviously isn't a good thing, but also the EQAO is a standardized test, and it tests kids in a way that in ways they're not tested in the classroom. So for example, there's a large multiple choice component. Kids, for the most part, are not tested in a multiple choice way in school when it comes to math. It's a completely different way of testing. Also, there has been such an incredible rise in test anxiety over the past few years.
We've seen that with lots of
Yeah,
students.
so you really need to take that into account. You know, the measures of a standardized test are not necessarily reflective proportionally to how kids are learning and understanding math.
So what do you do to make it fun, from a parent point of view and helping teachers as well?
I mean, there are so many things happening right now in classrooms that I think are a bit problematic. One thing that I've heard a lot of discussion about, and I really strongly believe, is that math is a specialized subject. Just because you understand math does not mean you can teach math, right? Like, to have a fundamental understanding of how multiplication works is different than just knowing your times tables. And it's really important for skills, for kids these days to develop skills. Like, they need critical thinking skills. They also need mental math skills. They need teachers who can tell them how to memorize and how to, like, incorporate that sense of numeracy, but also how to understand these concepts and problem solve. And unfortunately, elementary teachers aren't always, rarely trained to do that. So I think it's important for us to say it's not just important for kids to have specialized teachers like in calculus. When they're using the fundamentals, we need to strongly consider what it might look like if we had specialized teachers that understand and know math.
But how do you convince kids? Because my son struggles with the multiplication tables. There's a calculator out there to do that. How do you get around that? Is it memorizing? Is it simply rote?
Honestly, yes. Like really, there is a difference between being like, oh, cool, I have a calculator, I can just calculate that, and knowing when you go to a store, like, the tax is going to be approximately that much, just because you kind of know it, right? You don't have to pull out your calculator. It helps you make calculations on the fly. It helps you decipher your world around you. And I'll tell you, when you get to like grade 10 factoring, your calculator is not going to help you. You need to have an innate sense of like what numbers are going to multiply to 27. Like, you need to already know that stuff. Convincing kids, I mean, how do you convince kids that anything's going to be important later? Like to not eat that bag of chips, you know? But I think you can make it fun. There are so many apps out there now. There's so many websites. There's so many resources. You can like come up with games on the fly. Like, I think there are a lot of ways to engage kids, but I think it's important to talk to them and explain to them why it's important. Like, kids, just like adults, need to know why they're doing something. If something feels pointless, you're not very motivated. Yeah.
What are some of the games or tricks that you use?
So there are a few apps that I love. Honestly, I literally, like, just the other day, so I just published a math book called Math Hacks, which is like literally just making math fun for grade 3 to 6 and focusing on the basics and the things that cause anxiety. So in there, I was looking up websites and apps that I thought would be fun, and I literally went on Google and I was like, fun apps for kids to learn rote math. I was shocked at the cool thing. Like, there's like crazy games where you're like building rocket ships and like using multiplication and money to build parts. Like, I think you can find something for any kid. Do a quick Google search. You can get stuff for your iPad. You can get stuff for the web. If if we're in a digital world, right? So kids love that. There's also like some kids really do love worksheeting, and I find that a really good way to do this is to be like 10-minute math for the day. Like, literally, we're doing 10 minutes. We're going to set a timer. How many of these things can you do? And any sort of like, it could look like a boring worksheet, but if you make it fun that way, it's a challenge. I think that's one thing parents who are feeling like they're out of control when it comes to math can do with their kids. You can just honestly get them to do the mental math.
All right, Vanessa, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. And for more info on the Math Guru, head to breakfasttelevision.ca.